guys! Glad to be with you again this week as we draw together even while we're apart. And you might think, Mrs. Burke, you're wearing a baseball hat for class. And I am, but I'm wearing it on purpose because this hat tells a story. It has a picture of a place on it that is one of my favorite places I've ever been with my husband. And so when I wear it, every time I wear it, it reminds me of the adventures that we had there and the time we had together, and it tells a story. And I wonder if you are wearing something today that tells a story too. Are you wearing a t-shirt with your favorite video game on it? Or your favorite Disney character? Or of a place that you've been? Maybe you have a sweatshirt that has the name of a place or a school on it. So often we use cloth, fabric, and the things on it to tell stories. And today's artist knew that too. We're in week 3 of Black History Month, and our artist today is a woman named Faith Ringgold. Now, Faith was a beautiful painter. She could paint paintings that looked like they were created in Europe during the Renaissance. But when she graduated from art school, she realized that she was painting in a style that didn't tell the story of who she was. Faith was African American and had African descendants, and she realized that throughout the centuries, there was a beautiful art in Africa of creating textiles or fabrics made out that told stories. And then when many of those Africans came to the United States, they began creating quilts, combining different colors of fabric together to tell stories. They even sometimes used quilts to create art that told secret stories and gave clues for slaves to escape on the Underground Railroad. Well, Faith knew this rich history was hers, and she wanted her art to tell that story too. And so she began creating paintings that combined both paint and canvas and quilting fabric to tell stories. I want you to look at a few of her pieces here, and I want you to notice that there's paint, there's fabric, and even words. She told the stories by writing stories within the pictures of the stories. Take a look with me. Let's look at this one first. What story does it tell? People were celebrating and dancing and having a party. There's usually a story in the middle. And then look around the border. She applied fabric with African-inspired images around the edge, like a quilt. Now let's look at this one together. We see here a collection of famous African-American women, and Faith Ringgold painted them as if they were all working on one quilt together. This would have been a traditional way for women to gather and create, but I love the bigger message here. Those women probably didn't know each other and probably weren't friends, but each one contributed something to the world that together made something beautiful. Now let's look at this one together. In this quilt, Ms. Ringgold paints children of all different nations and races coming together. And she writes words around the edge telling the story of how their ancestors are calling upon them to work together for peace and for good. And then you can see individual pictures of children applied like squares of a quilt around the edges. Here's our final painting of the day. And I just love this one. There's so much to look at. There's a family having dinner on their rooftop in New York. And you see the children on a mattress looking up at the sky. But then if you look up at the sky, you'll see there's a girl flying through the air. Now, Mrs. Ringgold created this, and then she wrote a children's book about it. She called it Tar Beach. That's what they called the rooftop, because the roof was made of tar. And they went up there as if it were like being on vacation. She writes a beautiful book about imagining flying through the city and appreciating all of the good gifts that she sees. I've attached a link for your teachers on YouTube where you can listen to Ms. Ringgold herself reading this book that she wrote. But today, we're going to use this piece as our inspiration piece. We're going to create a story in the middle of something that we love and a quilt around the outside. Let's look at the project together. Here's a sample of what we're going to create today. Just like Faith Ringgold, we are going to create a quilt border with a story on the inside. And I'm going to have you write some words at the bottom if you know how. I'm going to have you write, if I could fly, I would fly to, and then you get to fill in the blank. In my creation today, I wrote, if I could fly, I would fly to Tennessee. That's where my parents live, and I haven't gotten to see them in a really long time. So this is me flying to the rolling hills of Tennessee. Maybe for you, you're going to draw yourself flying to the beach, or to your favorite restaurant, or to Disneyland, or to outer space. You get to choose wherever you want to fly. So I'm going to walk you through creating the border. I'm going to walk you through how to draw yourself flying. And then I'm going to give you time to just create whatever destination you want to fly to. Let's get started. This is a pretty straightforward project. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create this little border around the edge, and I'm going to show you how to do that. You'll use your ruler and your pencil and your Sharpie. And then we're going to just draw some patterns on our quilts. Then I'm going to show you how to draw yourself flying through the air. And then you get to create whatever you want in the middle of your drawing. So I'll walk you through a couple of steps, and then you'll get lots of time to create on your own. So go ahead, grab your art paper, and make it face landscape. That means sideways. Then we're gonna create a border using our ruler, but we're not gonna use our ruler to measure. We're just gonna use the straight edge. So you're gonna take your ruler and line it up right up against the edge of your paper, just like that. Press down to hold it in place and draw a line. Easy as that. We're going to do that on all 4 sides of our paper. Line it up nice and straight. Edge to edge, draw a line. I like how it makes that nice little square in the corner. Do the same thing up here. And if you have to, sometimes I like to turn my paper because sometimes I like to pull a pencil towards myself. You can turn your paper if that makes it easier for you. Line it up and draw your line. There, now we have the basic border for our quilt. Now, if you look at our original piece, you'll see that we divided our quilt into sections. This is really up to you. I'll show you how I divided mine. You can divide yours into however many quilt squares you want to. You might decide to take your ruler and do little 1-inch squares all the way across. I decided to just make mine a little bit bigger. And this does not have to be fancy. I just took my bottom paper, I put 3 fingers next to that first line, and I drew a line down. Notice it's not perfect? I don't care. Another line down, and see? You can do the same thing here. Let's see. I'm going to do about 4 fingers there. And notice how I'm turning my paper. Always easier for me to create next to my body rather than reaching across my paper. This guy is a little bit hard to get on the camera that way, so I'll do it like this. All right, now we have our quilt squares. I would say, well, actually, let's keep our pencil out for just a minute. Let's go ahead, before we put any sort of pattern in our quilt squares, let's go ahead and draw our person flying across the top. Last week we did people tumbling and flipping and leaping across the page, and this week we're going to do people flying across the top. That might look fancy, but I want to show you something. It's really just a long and skinny letter X, and that's how we're going to start our drawing. So I want you to go ahead and put your paper now vertically, and we're going to draw on the right hand side a long, really lightly, a long and skinny X. See that? Long and skinny X. Now we're going to make it actually look like a person. So I'm going to flip it back like this and start adding the appropriate shapes. So I'm going to put a circle for the head here. You can do a rectangle, or actually if I did a lady last time, I'll do somebody in a shirt and shorts this time. I can do a rectangle next to it, and then I can do rectangles on that X for shorts. I'm going to make my legs a little bit wider, and then notice that my feet are just kind of triangles. They do not have to be fancy. For the arms, I'm going to add a rectangle here for a sleeve and a rectangle here for a sleeve. Have those arms come out, and notice my hands aren't fancy. I just make 2 little U's for the fingers. Now I got to erase those X lines. And then you can adjust any way you want. I have this head and it looks a little bit like it's looking down to me, so I'm going to pop it up a little bit above. Oh yeah, that's much better. Okay, now we're going to do our face only seeing the side of it, and that's called a profile. So we're going to add a little triangle here on the front as a nose, and then you can add a smile or any kind of, maybe you have a surprised look on your face, you do a big circle. I did a smile on the other one, so I think I'll have a big surprised look on this one. And then to do your eyes from the side, we do a sideways V with a little curve right there. You can add an eyebrow, you can add a backwards C for an ear. I'm gonna have this guy have crazy spiky hair. He looks a little terrified. I think I'm gonna go back and give him a smile instead of that. Oh yeah, that's much happier. Instead of that scared look. So now we have the basics of our whole project. What I want us to do next is just start adding some of the details that will make it look a little more finished. So grab your Sharpie and go ahead, and again, now I don't have my ruler out again. I'm just using my Sharpie to go back. I'm tracing my lines, and I'm covering over my pencil lines with the black just to give it more of a finished look. I'm going to do the same on my quilt lines. And then I'm going to trace my person. Now you might not be done with your person yet. Don't feel like you have to keep the same pace that I'm keeping here. You can always come back. You can always pause your video. But I'm gonna go ahead and just trace this. Should we give this person shoes? That'd be kind of fun. Maybe some basketball high tops. And notice, I'm not being super careful about how I trace. I just want to get a nice little outline. That's the basic setup for our painting. The last thing I want you to do is write on the bottom, if I could fly, I would fly to, and then you get to fill in the blank. So I'm going to put that here, and I'm going to write that down here at the bottom. If I could fly, I would fly to, and then you get to fill in whatever you want there. The reason we're writing on this piece of art is because Faith Ringgold often wrote on her artwork, and so we want to honor her. Now you get to have fun. Now you can fill in your quilt squares with any patterns that you want. If you look at my original piece, I filled in a couple of them with patterns, and a couple of them I just left plain. Then you can draw whatever it is, wherever it is you want to go. I think for this guy, he's going to fly to the beach. So maybe I'll add a palm tree. You can use your pencil to draw this part, or you can use your Sharpie. It's really up to you. And this is the part where you're going to pause. You're going to take as much time as you need to create whatever it is that you want to create. I'm going to add a little sunset back here. Maybe some rays out this way. That'll be kind of neat because it'll remind us of, oops, well, sunset went into his shorts. That's okay. The different sections will remind us of Faith Ringgold's quilts. So I've drawn, maybe I could put a few little waves out here. And then I could add some patterns in my fabric. Now I'm going quickly because this isn't the kind of thing where you need to copy what I'm doing. This is the kind of thing where you can just take a look at what I'm doing and then do your own ideas. See how I'm doing some zigzags, some stripes. Oh, I don't know, you can do some triangles or squares. Anything you want. And you don't have to make designs at all. You could even just do each of these squares different colors. And then the last step will be to color this in. I colored my original piece all in crayon just because I love the boldness of the colors. You can color yours any way you'd like. If you want to use crayons, you can use crayons. If you want to use markers, use markers. If you want to use colored pencils, do that. If you want to do oil pastel and watercolor, or if you want to use all of them, this is your piece and your way to express your story through art. Go ahead and pause the video now and get out your supplies and have fun coloring. Did you have fun? Where did you go? Where would you want to fly? If you can, take a picture of your art creation and send it to your teacher so that they can share it with me. I love to see your work. Also love getting to create with you. Thanks so much for being with me today. I hope you had fun, and I want you to keep drawing together even when we're apart.